Coral Sea, May the 4th, 1942. Miles of open ocean stretch between the US and Japanese navies. But both carrier fleets scramble their aircraft, trying to be the first to attack each other's carriers.
The Coral Sea is one of those key naval moments where aircraft carriers, they can't see each other, and they're fighting.
Anti-aircraft fire sends planes crashing into the Coral Sea. The air attacks are devastating.
We were coming in with torpedo planes, we get hit with 5 torpedoes. And each torpedo blew a hole about 100 square feet. Tremendous explosion. The whole thing shattered. The ship's leaning a bit. Fire was burning. There were a couple of them bombs that landed. They broke our high-octane gasoline lines that we used to fill our airplanes.
Both fleets suffer extensive damage, but neither side emerges victorious. Japanese carrier Shoho is sunk, and the USS Lexington is damaged beyond repair.
Finally, they said, abandoned ship. I was completely covered with crude oil, so I start kicking and swimming. I must have swam for at least 2 straight hours, just, never stopping, just trying to get away from them.
This carrier versus carrier battle shows that the rules of war at sea have changed.
Much of what Yamamoto's strategy revolves around are destroying aircraft carriers. If you can't control the air and the sea around the islands, the units that are on those islands will starve. They can't get the supplies they need. So aircraft carriers are absolutely crucial for projecting power in that way. And this is the reason why the Japanese continually seek out US aircraft carriers to destroy them.
The Pacific Ocean, Midway, June 1942. This strategic US refueling base is Japanese Admiral Yamamoto's next target.
Yamamoto developed the idea that what you needed was some major engagement with the heart of the US fleet. But they needed to find an objective which would lure the American fleet into the middle of the Pacific. So they decided that they would occupy the small island of Midway. What they failed to achieve at Pearl Harbor, which was the complete annihilation of the American fleet in the Pacific, they would now achieve in the Battle of Midway.
The Japanese forces to be committed were overwhelmingly superior, and the American carrier situation was critical. Lexington has just been sunk in the Battle of the Coral Sea, and in the same engagement, the Yorktown had sustained damage, which made it problematical whether she could get back in time to participate in Midway's defense.
On June the 4th, Japan's Imperial Navy approaches the island of Midway. But the attack is no surprise.
Evidence that the enemy had already discovered or strongly suspected the Japanese advance towards Midway mounted sharply during the day.
The Americans, by extreme good luck, managed to break enough of the naval code to understand exactly what Yamamoto was planning.
The storm of the battle was about to break, and for the first time in 6 months, fate did not seem to be smiling upon us. No change, however, was made to the operational plan. The loudspeakers barked out the command, "Start engines." A Zero fighter leading the flock of impatient warbirds revved up its engine, gathered speed along the flight deck, and rose into the air, to the accompaniment of a thunderous cheer.
Japan's Navy sends more than 100 aircraft to attack Midway. But little do they know that the US fleet is moving into position to target Japan's carriers.
As we approached the Japanese fleet, they looked like little water bugs, and some big water bugs. Those were the carriers.
At about 9:20, our screening ships began reporting enemy carrier planes approaching. Some of our machine guns managed to fire a few frantic bursts at them, but it was too late. And a number of black objects suddenly floated eerily from their wings.
It takes about 22 seconds to go from, say, 22,000 feet down to 1,500 where you release the bomb. In that period of time, of course, you can see 4 or 5 planes ahead of you. Then you can see bomb hits, misses, and explosions on the deck and so forth. And immediately after release, turned to counter the zero attack. Of course, I'm in the middle of the Japanese fleet. Now the problem is how to get back to the carrier with the amount of gas that we got.
US intelligence gives the Americans a clear advantage.
The Americans know where the Japanese are going to be for the most part at Midway, and they take a risk. But that gamble pays off because not only do they catch the Japanese somewhat off guard at Midway, and the Americans sink a strong portion and, of course, inflict great damage on the Japanese.
Coming back to a bridge, I could see that Kaga and Soryu had also been hit and were giving off heavy columns of black smoke. The scene was horrible to behold.
After 3 days, the Battle of Midway is over.
It was an extraordinary battle, won by the narrowest of margins. But it's hard to find a single battle in the Second World War, I think, which had more decisive implications.
Beginning of the war, the Japanese certainly have the upper hand. They've prepared, they're ready. They know war is coming because they've planned for it. What was daunting and shocking to the Japanese was the speed with which the American military machinery responded. And within 6 months, the Americans have learned how to produce, and they begin to very quickly outproduce the Japanese. But there's a big learning curve for the Americans, too, in terms of strategy and engagement. And in part, it's really Midway that demonstrates also the role of intelligence. And that is an issue that the Japanese continually ignored, much to their peril in many theaters of the war.